He kicked one rubber band, it's cut a small piece, you gotta stretch it. Actually, when it's break, it's not all this, it doesn't, then it break again. It's amazing, isn't it? It really is. It's that. It's that. It's not, I don't want to say it's negative, it's that. That's just too hard. Thank you.
Okay. Wow, full house. Hello. Hello. How you doing, Marty? This is the January the 9th work session of the Elizabethtown City Council. And before the work session, we have a special meeting. Would you join me in prayer, please? Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so very, very much for the right to live in this wonderful town, this wonderful state, and America. We thank you for all of our many blessings. We ask that you forgive our sins. Please lead and guide us as we go forward. In Jesus' name I ask these things. Amen.
Amen.
Would you join us in the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And like I said, this is a special meeting tonight to adopt a resolution. And I would like a motion to read resolution number 1, 2017, supporting the location of the VA hospital in Radcliffe.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed?
Whereas the city of Radcliffe has offered 50 free acres of land at the Mill Pond Business Center for the replacement Robley Rex VA Medical Center. And whereas the Mill Pond Business Center has an additional 97 acres for expansion. And whereas the city of Radcliffe is aware that the VA paid $13 million for the 35-acre Brownsboro Road location, which is landlocked with current traffic and parking problems equal to or worse than the Zorn Avenue location. And whereas the city of Radcliffe is aware of the numerous complaints from veterans who are forced to navigate through insufferable traffic congestion to reach the current hospital on Zorn Avenue before experiencing an equally insufferable traffic problem. And whereas the city of Radcliffe recognizes that the cities and counties bordering Hardin County have a cumulative veteran population of 35,500 plus an additional 12,250 in the other southern county service area. And whereas the city of Radcliffe recognizes the ease of accessibility to and from the Mill Pond Business Center. And whereas the city of Radcliffe recognizes that veterans throughout the region, many who have experienced the trauma of combat, deserve a serene and safe hospital environment for hospitalization and outpatient treatment. Now therefore be it resolved that locating the replacement Robley Rex Medical Center at the Mill Pond Business Center is strongly supported by the city of Elizabethtown. Read, adopted, and approved this the 9th day of January, 2017.
Thank you, Dee Dee.
Motion to adopt. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, now welcome to the work session of the January 9th Elizabethtown meeting. And up first, new police video.
I'm gonna try and do this without knocking everything down.
You already say it didn't matter which engineer tried to make it work, none of them.
We're pulling that. Thanks for
While Michael's pulling this up, I'll give you just a little bit of background. So this video is actually a response to suggestions that we got from attendees of our Citizen Police Academy, some of the alumni, where they said that, we really think it would be great for people in the community to have a good, fair understanding of what the expectations are when we get stopped by the police and how we ought to present ourselves. We talk a lot about how the police should, but we'd like to know how we should present ourselves to minimize opportunities for misunderstandings. I said, what a great idea. So we looked around, we saw some other examples. From those examples, this became the crafted response to that suggestion. So I'm going to play the video and I'm going to tell you a tad bit more about it after that. So go ahead, sir. You feel pretty damn.
Most people don't like to think about it, but chances are, no matter how good of a driver you are, you will at some point during your lifetime be stopped by the police officer. I'm Officer Questenberry with Lewistown Police Department. Traffic stops can be stressful for both the officer and the driver, but there are some ways to improve the experience. When an officer observes a violation, the officer may wait before stopping the violator. During this time, the officer is communicating with the dispatcher to check the registration on the vehicle to ensure that the vehicle is not stolen. Officers are trained to plan when a traffic stop will occur, such as in a safe, well-lit area. When an officer is attempting to pull you over, they will turn on their blue lights and possibly their siren. You will need to pull over to the right-hand shoulder or other area out of traffic, such as a driveway or parking lot. Place your vehicle in park, place your hands on the steering wheel, remain in the vehicle unless the officer tells you otherwise. If you do not recognize the car stopping you as a police car, turn on your hazard lights, pull over to a well-lit area, and call 911 to see if an officer is attempting to stop you. If a non-uniform officer in an unmarked vehicle stops you, you can ask the officer for identification. Okay, sir, the person that stopped you, that you ran that stop sign back there. Any valid reason for doing so?
No, sorry, I guess I just wasn't paying attention.
Okay, do you have your driver's license? Where is it located?
It's here in my wallet.
Get it out to me, please. Okay, sir, do you still live at your current address on your license?
I did.
Okay, do you have a proof of insurance and registration?
It's in my center console here.
Go and get it. Okay, sir, I'm staying in your car and leave your seatbelt on for a moment. If you need to reach for your documents out of the officer's view, such as the enclosed console or glove compartment, tell the officer before you reach for those documents. You should not reach for items under your seat or any other concealed area. Remember that you are required to cooperate with all reasonable requests that law enforcement personnel makes. The officer will go to his car to check the license number and registration. He will also verify the insurance coverage. The information that an officer requests is necessary to complete a citation or warning. Kentucky law says that an officer may ask you to take a field sobriety test and a preliminary breath test if the officer suspects that you have been drinking. You could refuse to take the test, but by refusing will most likely not work in your favor if the officer has some other reason to suspect that you have been drinking. Based on that other reason, the officer could still arrest you and require you to take a chemical blood test to determine your alcohol level. The officer may ask you or your passengers to step out of your vehicle at any time during the stop. Okay, sir. I've issued you a citation for running that stop sign. It is prepayable, but if you wish to dispute it, there is a court date that's listed on here. And prepayable instruction sheet tells you how to do all that. Do you have any questions today?
No, sir.
Okay. Your information back. Drive safe for me today.
Thank you.
Common reasons for being stopped include distracted driving, such as using a cell phone or texting while driving, equipment violations, including broken tail lights and expired license plates, tailgating and improper lane changes, and reckless driving and speeding. According to recent studies, driver inattention is the leading factor in most crashes and near crashes. The cause for the traffic stop depicted in this video is associated with a low-risk traffic stop. With higher-risk traffic stops, it could be more dynamic and may involve multiple officers. In every case, all occupants of the vehicle should comply with the officer's instructions. Procedural questions and complaints about an officer's treatment of you during a traffic stop can be forwarded to the officer's supervisor to lessen the chances of being stopped. Don't speed, drive aggressively, or drive while you're impaired. Put away your cell phone and don't text while driving. Always wear your safety belt and correctly buckle up any children who are riding with you. Abide by traffic signs and signals and yield to pedestrians when they have the right of way. A traffic stop is never a pleasant experience, but try to find the positive in the situation and use the information you receive to make yourself a better motorist. I'm Officer Questenberry from Lewistown Police Department. Drive safe out there.
He didn't even crack a joke.
Really, really good. Do you have the producers and directors here?
Oh, yes.
All right. That's why we have this big crowd.
Hey, there's that.
Well, they all came to get that.
Oh, Joe.
They all came to get that.
Exactly.
So,
See that?
how this came to be, so we had this discussion I just told you about. I spoke with Virgil Willoughby. I think everybody knows Virgil. Virgil, you're here, aren't you? And so Virgil actually went to Gina Ryan, Director of Hardin County Education and Community TV, to discuss this topic, and she referred us to Miss Belinda Stark. Stark? Here, Ms. Stark is instructor for EC3's Media Arts program they have there. And she immediately offered her class as the source for the production of this video you just saw. So everything in this video was produced, how it was edited, put together, they did it all. And we're lucky enough to have I guess the kids have worked on it. So Ms. Ryan, if you don't mind introducing your folks that are with us, help work on this program.
This is Michael.
Great job.
Great job.
You all, it is really professional. It's just great. Thank you so much. Now, what are you gonna do with that? Oh, I'm sorry. Really? How are you gonna use it?
Okay, so a couple other quick things. So, funding is always an issue when you come to these things. So we want to discuss that. And she had the perfect answer. So they had a program. It's the $100 solution. It's actually funded by grants through the United Way program. So all of this really supplied all the money needed, all the work needed. It cost us in the city nothing to do this. And it also produced our star. Zach has got so many great pieces about him as a person. It takes me hours to go through them, but
Chico here.
We basically said, Zach, this is what we need you to do. He went out and did this with their input and assistance, but did a phenomenal job, and I'm really proud of him and all of y'all. This is going to be a great benefit for each part of the city. So how are we using it? So we'll have it on our our web page. Facebook will be available that way. We distribute it to our Hardin County television station. We're going to be using it at the different venues. I'm talking to our school resource officer. That'll be using high schools. So we're going to have a number of ways of rolling it out throughout the community. So we're expanding it and looking for new ideas. So that's what we're doing. So it's been a great program, a great way for us to answer the questions people have been asking, get the information out there, and really, I think at the same time, give opportunities to some of these kids. And then, of course, the problem is now people are, as soon as Zach stops somebody, they're wanting to get an autograph.
Oh.
They get one.
Not to pick on the
Oh,
people.
okay. Yeah, they'll give, he's probably giving them.
But the last thing I like to do, we have these certificates of appreciation for Stark and all of the rest of the kids here with you today that can hand these out to you all. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Any questions on that?
Yeah, when can you come back and show us the outtakes to this?
I asked Zach about that because we had some interesting outtakes on the last video we made. He said, "There's no outtakes." He says, "I was serious about this one." So I went right down there. That to me was astounding. So,
Chief, I want to ask Zach a question. When he pulled the subject over, you said, "Did you have a valid reason for running this stuff?" Can you give me a reason I could use it? Just for future reference. I never could either.
we're still searching for it.
Doesn't mean there's not one out there.
Okay.
Chief, I think it is good because we've talked about this in our other groups that we meet with our local police department. And I know out west, especially in California, you'll see the guys, they all stick their hands out the windows when they get pulled over. So I think it was a good thing that we have a set thing that we can look at to say properly what we should do when we get pulled over.
Yeah, it's a great, of course, it doesn't cover everything, but what it does is it gets key information out there. It makes an issue, it creates the conversation. So when people start having that conversation, they'll start thinking about it prior to such an event taking place. Because, for us, do still do policing, I'm also a lot, but they do enough of these where it becomes a bit routinized, I guess, if you will. But then any individual gets stopped. It's a pretty traumatic situation for them. So, we like to try and give them some information, make it not quite as stressful. And the last thing before I sit down, in front of you, you're going to see a couple of calendars. The rolled up calendar is the ones that's for our cadet program. That's put together every year, no cost to us, and brings in quite a bit of money for the cadets to help fund their program throughout the year. And the other one's just a nice calendar, another calendar that's got some nice little tidbits in there for motivations. Good deal.
Thank you.
The marathon results are a lot more.
From the fire department. Couldn't help it. Okay. Hey, thank you very much. It's a great film. Krista from the Heritage Council.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I just wanted to briefly update you and remind you that this upcoming Saturday is the second Saturday, and so I've left you that flyer there so you can kind of look that over. This month, we are encouraging folks to visit downtown Elizabethtown for January 2nd Saturday of after Christmas sales, and participating businesses will have discounts up to 50% off. Second Saturday hours are 5 to 8, but a lot of those businesses will be open still throughout the day, and we'll honor those deals also going on. The Heritage Council will also have a second Saturday ad that you'll be seeing in the newspaper this Thursday, and so we're excited about that. And we'll also list the participating businesses that will be having those deals. And then on our Facebook page, we will be sharing those special deals to those businesses. We have 25 businesses that's participating with us, so you have those deals on there, and we're going to be sharing those as the week comes on, so you can kind of get the heads up on those deals before we broadcast that out. But just wanted to share that with you since that's new this week.
Thank you so very much. This is awesome. 25,
yes, all downtown merchants, and we're very excited to participate. So hope you guys check it out.
That's awesome. Ben, be sure you get that in the paper. There's 25 merchants open downtown. That's awesome. Okay, Megan, come on down.
Mayor and City Councilmen and women, it is an honor. Got a lot of big shoes to fill, but have some great news to share with you. Actually, a belated gift for 2016, our Christmas gift to you and the entire 5-county region is something called 211 Service. We wanted to make sure that each of you as community leaders was aware of this resource, which is free to our entire 5-county region and how it can benefit you. I don't have quite the production value, but now I know who to call for our next campaign video when I need a narrator, but did want to let you know 211 essentially solves this question that I'm sure each of you feel on a day-to-day basis. Likely constituents who reach out to you with questions about how to afford their health coverage or concerns about a child's development or potentially services that they need for an aging parent. And United Way of Central Kentucky takes about 360 phone calls every year with people with these same kinds of questions. And what is challenging is there's never been before one central location for all of this information. About a year ago, we started working with Fort Knox, trying to better organize the resources available to our military families as our servicemen and women were transitioning out of the Army. And really this was developed in the last year as a specific response, not only to that need, but the broader needs we were seeing of many nonprofit agencies, so many questions from the community about where to go if you're in need, and no one central place to send folks. So now 211 will act as that backbone service for us. As you can see nationwide, and this is why the question came before us from our military community, so many of our military families were used to having 211 in states where they were previously stationed. As you'll see, Kentucky is unfortunately the lowest in terms of coverage of its citizens by 211 service, which has been widely adopted nationwide. So once we saw there's clearly a need and a valuable role that this could play in our community, we had to figure out how to make it happen. Luckily, because of the partnership that we have with Metro United Way out of Louisville, we were able to offer the 24/7 call center through their existing center at the Center for Women and Families in Louisville. So now all 5 of our counties will be covered to connect this band from the southernmost part of Kentucky up through nearly complete coverage up through greater Cincinnati. So now 63% of Kentuckians being covered. So what's in 211? Essentially, anything you don't need our great folks at E-Town PD or any of the first responders for. Requests like utility assistance, help finding a job, crisis hotlines, after-school programs, any resource that's willing to participate, as all of this is voluntary, but any type of service that could be an asset where non-emergency service is needed is eligible to be included in 211. We have some resources for you today that explain this. You have packets with this information as well. But the thing that we think you'll be excited about is the fact that this service, while it is free and confidential, we can gather data out of the system. So in real time, we can see where callers are making requests from and what specifically they're looking for. So you as community leaders can get real-time data directly from the people that you represent. So we'll have this available for you as we've just gotten the service launched, but we'll have this available to report publicly out to the community. There are promotional materials we've left. There are business cards that I hear our police really like as well because they can carry these, or public offices, any business that would like to display these. We have extras left here, and also United Way can get you as many as you would like. Because these business cards not only include the number for 211, that QR code on the back will link folks directly to our website, where all of this information is also available. The public can search for any of these types of services. It's available 24/7 and free. And this way, sometimes folks aren't comfortable talking about their situations, and this is a great way not only for those folks to be served, but for agencies also to be accessing the same set of information as they're making referrals. So we have all of this available to you again for free. The underwriting came primarily from our local dollars, which are thanks to you all and our generous community who support United Way, as well as our sponsors and the great folks over at Metro United Way. Were able to do this at about 1/5 of the cost of the recent center that came to the Bowling Green area. So that's a little bit about the service, and just want to see if there are any questions or anything that we could provide for you today.
I think it's a great idea. Do you foresee the reports that you generate, would they be quarterly, annual?
That's a great question. We can do that anytime on request. There is a live real-time service that updates nearly daily that we're trying to tag onto, which is called 211 Counts. So our hope is to be able to provide that, which is really in real time and a lot of data that you can pull without having to request anything from us.
They call 211, did they speak to a person?
It's a live person, and I'm usually, that's the first thing I mention, because we're in the technology age where usually you don't. You will call, and you do have to press 1 to talk to somebody, but it's just to make sure you're in the system. But it is a live operator with multiple languages. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. And these folks, I do need to just say, I went through Elizabethtown Police Academy this last round. You don't know, I'm sure you know, I'm sure many have said this. What an amazing resource. It is fantastic that we have this available. And I learned so much, continue to learn a lot, and we look forward to supporting our officers and all of our first responders. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it. And Pope, come on down. Better and better. Detention basin. Getting good now. Oh, and let me say something that I forgot to do to the ones of you who do not know. We have a new council member. I know this isn't a real meeting. It is a work session. Mr. Bennett, I had served before, but he has been gone 2 years.
Took a vacation.
So for the ones of you who have not met, William Bennett.
Thank you.
Next topic has no video and is definitely not as exciting as the other discussions that's taken place. We're going to talk about drainage basins and maintenance and yeah. I know that's got you all on the edge of your seat as you start the new year to talk about this, but quick refresher, the city actually has a policy that was adopted a number of years ago as it relates to the acquisition of open spaces. That policy was put into place and we actually acquired through donation 4 different properties of almost 30 acres in size that the city now has some kind of maintenance responsibilities over in various parts of the community. They're typically in residential areas and they were, again, mainly designed as open space. So they do have some drainage features to them. Most of them have quite a bit of utility easements across them. So they really weren't developable pieces of property. All of them, like I said, have some kind of drainage feature through them. Some are along creek areas. So that policy has been in place for a number of years. Recently, you all have had discussions about drainage basins and the condition they're in and the maintenance and upkeep as it has related to the Covington Ridge area and Foxborough Estates. We are also in discussions with a developer who has some land, again, is open space, has some drainage basin aspects to it, of potential transfer of that property to the city. So administratively, we felt we needed to have some discussion with the council to broaden the current policy on acquisition and look at some of the maintenance features. And really the broader policy has impacts in 4 areas. That is the smaller basins that are adjacent to somebody's house or on just in an easement area. They are not on a specific lot. They're not larger in size. We feel that based on the direction the council has already given us, that those issues are being addressed by the city. You all have directed that you all want us to look at maintenance of those areas because of the impact on a single property owner and stuff. The other 2 areas then that we want to talk about today of the 4 relate to larger basins in residential areas that are still controlled or are being designed by developers. Open space, because we're going to make a distinction between drainage basins and open space areas. And then the 4th area to look at a future time is just some of the drainage easement areas. We think we need to look at that issue a little closer because we think in some parts of the community, there may be certain drainage ways that really aren't a basin itself or a big open space, but because of their, I guess, unique characteristics that we need to control and have some more insight into, that we feel we need to look at those in the future. But those aren't the ones we want to talk about today. Like I said, today we want to talk about drainage basins that are still developer design and controlled in subdivision and open space. The distinction between these 2 that we want to make has to deal with the design and utilization of the area. A basin will be designed again to potentially hold or detain water. So we need to look at those areas a little closer because of the impact on the adjoining residential uses. They're going to be in residential neighborhoods. So there will be, I think, an expectation of how that area is maintained. Robert and Michael can tell you that some of those basins may be pretty shallow and look like a lawn area. So the maintenance and The mowing of those areas will be different than an area that we may classify as open space. An open space area, typically the slopes will be much greater, and it's being done just for that reason, just to keep it in that natural state. So we're trying to protect a creek or a drainage way that may not be a free flowing creek all the time. But again, the maintenance level on those will not be as it would be in a basin. Again, they're still going to be in residential areas, but because of the nature and the classification, they'll be treated differently. So we think we need to look at an inspection program to make sure what the city is getting is in good condition, and we're not necessarily taking on, in addition to the maintenance responsibilities, any efforts there where we have to finish the construction of the basin or do those kind of things. So through the subdivision process, through the engineering department and the stormwater department, those aspects would be inspected to make sure they met the original design that was approved, and then are in a condition that the city can begin maintenance. We would also propose to you all that we look at those and develop individual maintenance plans as they relate to the type of basin that it is. Right now, for example, in a basin in a residential area, we're looking at potentially mowing a couple times a month, maintenance then at of the grass area. Not going to say exactly the same as all the lots in the subdivision, but similar to how we all maintain our lot at our house. Where contrast that to an open space area where we have a plan for that, where we may only mow those areas a couple times a year. We may not even mow those areas at all, other than a perimeter area, because we know it has an impact on some adjoining homes, and then we'll kind of create a buffer area that we can mow just to ease the concerns that the residents may have with having that open space around them. But for the majority of the open space, like I said, the city may mow it twice a year. We may not even mow it at all. However, we would also, as part of that maintenance program, we feel we need to look at just kind of the debris and trash removal and those kind of things, since it is going to be an open space area, since it is going to be an area that is maintained on in some instances on a regular basis, that we don't want to become a detriment or just an eyesore to the neighborhood also. So with that is all the background and examples of the discussions and the two type of things. The second page of your all's handout, there are 4 questions that administratively we have for the council, and we need your all's direction on as we develop these programs. First of all, the question is, with those 2 differing type uses, I mean, are you all in agreement that we need to look at them differently, and as we develop the general procedures? And again, the procedures that we're talking about deal with design standards, then having an inspection program before the city takes the responsibility for the maintenance. And I want to emphasize under that aspect, at this point in time, from an administrative standpoint, we are looking at those because we know there's going to be the ongoing maintenance cost in the future, to be a donation to the city, and that transfer then also to be borne by the person who is making that donation to the city. So the upfront cost of the transfer of the property, the deed preparation, any survey work, those kind of things are the responsibility of the person making that transfer to the city, because we're taking on the obligation long term then to maintain the area and keep it to certain standards. And again, we think we need to have individual plans so that the residents in Foxborough, if there's a question to the Public Works or Stormwater Engineering Department, or they call Mary saying there's a basin in my neighborhood, nobody's been out here to mow it, or they file a complaint with our department saying who's responsible for mowing the property behind me, that the city can explain to folks, oh, you're in the Foxborough Estates neighborhood. Guess what? That basin was accepted 2 years ago. The maintenance plan for that area is it is mowed, you know, on a monthly basis. It's generally the second or third week of the month, whatever the schedule works out to be, so that the residents then understand that, okay, there's not going to be somebody from the city out there mowing that every week. Now, again, in a certain residential areas, we may be mowing them on a weekly or a couple times a month basis, or maybe it's an open space, which is a property that we have north of the Shadow Creek Estates area. It's about 15 acres in size, that we can answer those residents and say, no, that was acquired as open space. It's along a drainage area to protect just that drainage area. It's only mowed by the city once a year, where we go in. Now, there is a boundary on it, 10 feet wide. We come through every other month and try to keep that 10-foot cleared. But that way, like I said, we have plans for each of those areas. We have the ability to respond to residents as that comes up. Okay, I'm going to stop talking at this point. And like I said, we've kind of laid just the outline out for you all. We do need some direction from the council on how detailed you all think we need to get on some of this. If you all think we are heading in the correct direction on the maintenance of these areas, we don't have a list pending right now, but I'm sure as we work through these, like I said, through the engineering department, stormwater and public works, they can probably identify a number of areas that will probably come before you all in the near future, where we would ask that we take these on as responsibility. So,
and I would just say, I'm looking at the 4 questions that you posed on that one sheet there. I think maybe, you know, when we talked about this briefly before and asked you all to take a look at it, I think we've really answered the first 3, you know, that we need more details, that agree with the general procedures and the inspections and that kind of thing. And then with a maintenance plan, I personally think we've probably already answered those 3 that we do agree that, yes, we do. Number 4, I'd like to have some feedback from your office on standards and concepts that we should address and need to explore. I don't know enough about, I mean, obviously I know what the basins are, but I would like to have some feedback from you all on what you think the standards and concepts that we should develop. I don't know.
well, there are a couple things from a standard standpoint that to get into some of that specifically that I think we would bring to you all. And one of the concerns that we have from an administrative standpoint in the maintenance responsibility is accessibility to these areas. So in the past, it's been, oh, you just create an open space, or you have this lot where this basin is, and you worry about the design of the basin, and how you get to the area and how you maintain around it is an afterthought, because nobody really, I mean, at the time, the city's philosophy was, that's a basin in a residential neighborhood done by a developer. We're not going to take care of it. So we had not been as concerned about how do you access that area for maintenance. So I think that is one of the standards, Ron, that we will look at and come to you all and say, guess what? We're going to change, and it may be that we have to change something in our subdivision regulations to create a certain lot, frontage along a street so that we can access it. Right now, we have a procedure or a standard in the subdivision regulations that says to create any type of open space lot, you only have to have 20 feet of frontage. Typically, in most of our developments, the frontage requirements for a lot are much greater than 20 feet. It's something I think we're going to have to explore, because the city's now going to have to get equipment in between potentially residents or businesses, because that's the other part. I know we talk a lot about it being in residential areas, but some of these basins are in commercial areas, the one we have under construction right now off Buford Lane. I mean, it adjoins two commercially zoned pieces of property. Now, we worked with those property owners to address how that area would be accessed for maintenance in the future. But that's something that, quite honestly, in the past, the city has not looked at because we weren't going to take maintenance responsibility. So I hate to say we didn't care, but I mean, we just weren't concerned about how did you access that basin because we did not look at it from a maintenance issue from our standpoint. So that's a standard that I think you'll see us change and look at. In certain cases, that standard may require some kind of paved access to a site. In certain standards, I think engineering and the stormwater folks will look at it and say, maybe it does not have to be a paved access. But when you're talking about having to get equipment and equipment that may have trailers with it and mowers and those kind of things, that's one of the standards. Now, specifically what that is, I'm like you. I mean, I may help craft it, but I'm not the one who's driving a truck and a mower back there. So I'm not going to tell you what the standard may need to be right now. But that is one that I think we will look at. Another standard that we'll probably have to look at a little closer is the slopes on some of the basins and the areas around it. Again, as we've seen, and I think a number of you all have been out and looked at the one basin out in the Covington Ridge area that is adjacent to a residence. I mean, we may have to look at changing that standard that says you have to give a certain distance around a basin area, again, to create some buffer from a single family residential use, or to create that accessibility around the basin itself so it then can be maintained by one of the different type mowers we have to do the mowing along the slopes and those kind of things. So I think from that standpoint, Ron, you'll probably see a little more definition in design and access are probably going to be the two standards that way that we will look at, and again, address that through the stormwater aspect through their design manual. We'll probably have to reference those in the subregs and the zoning ordinance too, because through the city's development review process, a lot of times those the aspects of the basins or easements for that have to be shown either through a subdivision plat or through a development plan. So we may have to look at that. But like I said, one of the questions though is this level too, or distinction between basins and open space and mowing and maintaining things at different levels. Because again, you all are going to hear from residents that, I mean, some people are going to think that it, you know, is unsightly, but.
So are we looking at going back and looking at all of our residential basins and saying we're going to take them over?
I think.
And if we do, then are we going to make sure that basin is compliant first? So does that mean the developer or maybe like the homeowner in the Covington Ridge would then be responsible to bringing up to the standards before we can take over it? Somebody's got to pay for that.
The direction that we understand to this point is on the smaller basins that impact that one property owner that may be in an easement in their side yard or something like that. The direction you all have given us is you all want us to go ahead and start looking at maintenance of those areas. To your question of the larger basins and taking more of those in, yes, I think we're heading in the direction of long-term, that being more of a city responsibility to take that to make sure they are operating properly, again, based on the recent history that we've seen that, you know, if they have been ignored, if they're put in, but they're ignored for 10 years, then guess what? They don't function the way they were supposed to all the time. So yes, we would look at that. But again, to your point, that's what we were saying. Before we come to you all and say, we recommend you all take the basin in XYZ subdivision, that yes, we would have done an inspection and gone to that person who says, I want the city, you know, I've finished my subdivision development and they haven't asked us this. So I'm just using this as an example. You know, there's a basin in front of Magnolia Farms. If the developer of that subdivision comes and says, we now want the city to take this basin on, then you're right, Cindy. We would go out, we would make an inspection and say, well, wait a minute, before we'll even present this to the council, even though it may be in a policy statement that the city says we will take that on, here's 6 things that you have to fix before we're willing to go to the council and ask them to take this on. And then guess what? Based on that, we're saying this is a residential subdivision basin. So here's the maintenance plan. So that, yes, when we come to you all as the council, we'd say, okay, we've now been approached by the developers in Magnolia Farms. They want us to take their basin. We made an inspection 60 days ago. We gave them a list of 5 items. They have now corrected all those 5 items. Because of the location, we're treating this as a open space basin. So guess what? We're telling them that we're only going to mow it, the perimeter 10 foot wide. We're going to mow that every 2 months. The rest of it is going to be left as open space. We're not mowing that. They're in agreement with that. They've shown that to their homeowners association, and then we'll present to you all to say, here the inspection has been made. So yes, there isn't this burden on the city to fix something before we take it. And here's the level of maintenance that we are suggesting that we do to you all. And we've told the neighborhood that's what we want to do, instead of, oh yeah, we're going to take it on. And guess what? Oh yeah, we got to fix the pipe and we got to do this and we got to do that. And when are we going to mow it and how are we going to mow it? And then you all get phone calls from everybody all the time saying the grass hasn't been mowed this week. So.
The thing that I have concerns about, I think we identified there were over 100 developer or homeowner association owned basins. And I think if we just say we're ready to take over all the basins based on this set of criteria that they're in fine working order, and we'll have to agree with our maintenance plan, stuff like that, I think we're gonna be overwhelmed with basins to overtake. So I think we need to kind of have an inventory of them, and I believe the city should really only be concerned, especially at the beginning, with the basins that are causing problems, because we do have some of those. So I think we have to prioritize them. And that way, when developers call and say, we can't wait to give you the maintenance of our basin, because they can't wait to give us the maintenance of their basin. I think that one of the things that we should mention to them is we're happy to put it in the lineup. We don't know where you fall in the prioritization. We have to take care of basins that are causing flooding issues, that are causing problems. And from a budget standpoint, we'll have to grow with this program of taking over these basins, because we just don't know what it's going to cost according to the maintenance schedule. So if it's a little more manageable, if we took over 3 or 4 a year or something, but I mean, just think about that. There's 112 basins, I think is what we had. I think we would have an overwhelming issue. So some of these basins are operating fine. Most of them are operating fine, and they're being maintained by the associations. I think that we should adopt a policy that says, yes, we will consider, it's almost like an annexation, we'll consider taking over the maintenance of any of them. But, it doesn't mean we can take it over the next 30 days. We have to see where we are with all these other concerns.
Along those lines, Terry, when we developed the open space policy for the council, we came up with 6 criteria that we would use in evaluating whether or not the city would accept a piece of property for open space. So from what I make sure I understand what you're saying, you think we need to do something similar to that, is come up with some criteria that helps us prioritize them. And then also what you want to hear from us is, how many do we think administratively we can take on in a year? We don't want to show up and say, yeah, we think we can handle 20. I mean, we may need to come to you and say, we think we can handle 5 more a year, but if we do that, we're going to have to increase staffing levels or do whatever.
And here's the other thing. So Ed Pope's basin may come to us and it might meet all the criteria. Yes, it's check mark that, yes, it will be accepted. Now, the timeline for that acceptance is 3 years. Or 2 years, or, we've got you in the lineup. But that timeline is a moving target too, because if we ended up with more problem basins that had to go to the front of the line, then then the Ed Pope Basin could be, put to the back of the line a little bit more. So I think we have to have a way to prioritize them so we can handle and manage them as they come through. The other issue that I had was, I think there should be an inspection before we take over a developer or a neighborhood-owned basin. But before that, the developer has to come to us in that neighborhood plan, and he gets the specs from us on how to build that basin.
Correct.
We need to make sure that we inspect that basin during the construction and after the construction, so there are no surprises to us 5 years later when they're ready to turn it over to us. And so I think we need to have an inspection up front. And the other thing that I'm a little concerned about is we are expecting that developer to take care of that basin. Can they assign the rights to that basin? Can they sell that to anyone they want? Can they automatically say, Joe Smith bought that house next to it, and we're gonna give that basin to them, and now Joe Smith's gonna be responsible for the basin? And to tell you the truth, that homeowner does not understand. He only understands what the developer has told him. And chances are the developer has said, all you gotta do is mow it. Nobody will ever be able to build it. And so they say, oh yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. They don't realize that, the bottom of that basin might have to be dredged out, the spillway or the pipe or whatever could give way. I mean, there's maintenance involved there. So I just wonder, is that the way it should be? Should the developer should they be able to give that to any single property owner or any neighborhood association that really, they don't understand what they're getting into?
But I think if there's a potential for, and I agree with what you're saying, because we've seen that situation. But I think if this program is out there that the city is going to look at taking the basin in, I don't know that they're gonna be as willing to give it to a homeowner as much as they're gonna try to give it to the city. Because again, I think the developers want to get out of that maintenance.
I think that's correct, but to a couple of the points that Terry made, I think one, like I said, the recent events are requiring us to look at our standards a little closer, Terry, and I think as part of that, that we have had the discussions administratively that in addition to standards for design, you're right, we need to develop standards for maintenance. So as you point out, we may go to Mr. Developer and say, that's right, we're putting you on the list, but guess what? Based on the criteria that the city has and our acceptance, we don't see accepting your project for 4 more years. So here's the maintenance responsibilities that you need to keep up in that interim, or else guess what? When we come out 4 years from now and do that inspection, there's going to be a whole lot more remedial work that you'll have to do to make sure your place on the list is still accepted. So yes.
It would be as accurate as we can make it, but
Right.
there could be some movement in that time.
Sure.
Those other situations could be more pressing or in dire need, have issues like we run into this past year.
But to your answer of, can they set that up that way? I think in the past we have seen it done in a number of different ways, and in some instances it was done just as a bigger side yard with a drainage easement set up. I think based on what we have seen and the comments that you all have heard from the community, that through the design process, we're going to get away from that being the case. Now, if they want to set it up as a separate lot and the homeowners association takes it on and they pay into that, I use the example of Magnolia Farms. In all honesty, you all, the way they have their homeowners association set up and what they've done with their basin, I don't think that is one that the city will ever be asked to take on, because they have done some features around there with their walking path and with their community gardens, and they've got fountains in them and those kind of things. Yeah, I mean, that's not, if they bring that to the city, I mean, that's not a level of maintenance that we're going to look at and say, oh yeah, we're going to keep it at that level. So that's one, like I said, I used as an example, but I don't foresee that they would come to us because that's not the level of maintenance the city's. I mean, we won't do things to that. I mean, we may mow it twice a month, but we're not going to be out there as frequently as those folks may want it to do. So I think we're going to have some variation that way, even though I'm like you, I think we need to get a really good handle on that inventory for you all and say, these are the ones, if there's 100, look, we really think 30 of them are pretty likely that we're going to have to look at. These other 70 don't, or they fall in this category, or they're not a size that we need to, or they're working and those kind of things. So you all have a true understanding because again, from an administrative standpoint, we know we're taking on maintenance responsibilities and we know we're going to have to prepare and come to you all with some budgeting numbers that say, these are the staffing levels that we need to look at. Cause we've already had that discussion. Okay. How many are we doing now? And we're doing it with a crew of this size, with this much equipment. How much more can they handle, or how much do we need to expand that workforce? Yeah, more
See,
more
I
more.
think back to what you said, back what Terry said too. I believe our first step is to prioritize, because like you say, that Magnolia Farms, we probably will never be involved with that. And before we can make those other, I think we need to prioritize those that where we immediately need to get involved. Secondly, I don't think we can take all of them on.
Not in our lifetime.
Not in our lifetime, you know. So I think the listing that we need from you all,
and the ones that we
is the first step.
And the ones that we'll take on at the beginning are going to be the worst.
Would be the absolute worst one, right? Which, like you say,
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, and some of those, Terry, I mean, we may look at those and say, look, in the first 2 or 3 years, we think we can only handle
one or two.
two a year.
Yeah.
You know, after that, we might be able to handle 4 or 5 a year once we have a system developed and those things going on. But initially, we may not be able to take as much on.
The other thing I was going to ask, so we head back to the Magnolia Farms. I don't want to dwell on that one, but are we saying that we still want to be involved in the inspection of that, even though we may not be?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the design and inspection, because Michael and Robert will tell you, even though it may not be in the city's maintenance system in the future, it impacts the overall watershed of that area and the drainage of the adjoining properties and those kind of things. So yes, we're still going to have design criteria for that and would still do inspection on those bases.
Well, I think the priority, that priority list is the first step that we need. That's the.
And I agree with the points that you have there on the acceptance and
We got, okay. Thanks for your time today. Sorry, I didn't have a video to go along with it.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about the residential basins, but I haven't thought much about the open space.
Thanks, Ed. Don?
Don, can I ask a question before you start on this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you
Have you
can.
talked recently with Mr. Gerhard?
I have not.
I
Not
had
since,
correspondence with him last week.
oops.
And you know, I placed this on the agenda before Christmas, if you'll remember. And he intended to be here. And, right, he intended to be here then and couldn't make it, but he wanted to be here for the next discussion. I don't know what we're gonna do, but I told him I would notify him before we talked about it again. Through some communications, he thought it was gonna be discussed again before Christmas. I'd like to delay this until I can notify him that it's on there. I told him I would.
Okay, we are ready to discuss it tonight. I mean, we
Well,
have,
in the correspondence with me last week, he said, you know, he was sorry that he couldn't be here.
okay,
And he had talked, but he said, I would like to be there. You know, when you all discuss it again, I said, I'll let you know.
Okay.
I didn't know it was gonna be.
and the reason we were prepared tonight was that at the November work session, you had asked that Ed and
Right,
Chief
you
and
all
I
come
get
back.
together and then come back.
If we could.
Okay.
I'd like to let him know the next work session.
Okay.
Is that,
All right.
is that agreeable with everybody?
Thank you, Don.
I think it's fair to him.
Don, that was a
Oh,
great
no, we want to
presentation.
stay here even longer.
Ed really wore you out.
That's what I was really trying to say. And Don, I will notify him, and what do we say, the next informal work session? Okay.
Get on your bubble there.
Mr. Page.
Yes, good evening. Just want to notify everyone that West Dixie Avenue will be closed this weekend, beginning this Friday, 13th at 7 p.m. and reopening Monday at 6 a.m. on the 16th. This is due to the Poplar Drive sanitary and drainage sewer improvements. They're going to be constructing a 10-foot by 6-foot drainage box culvert through West Dixie Avenue and also some sanitary sewer lines through Dixie. The detours will be through the portion of West Dixie, that'll be closed is going to be between Miles and Maple Street. The same area that was closed a few weeks back. The detours will be through Maple, West Poplar, and Miles. Following that closure, that Monday on the 16th, Mac Construction contractors for the Poplar Drive project are going to be closing West Poplar Street and Poplar. That from 16th Monday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. That'll extend through Thursday. Excuse me.
Monday through
That'll
Friday.
be
right?
Friday. That'll be Friday, yes. But they could get done sooner and maybe it won't be closed Friday. So that's always a hope. So, you have any questions?
I assume those signs will still be up. I mean, the electronic signs.
Yes. Yeah, I think Mr. Willoughby's gone, but I think he put those up for us.
Is that it? You all have any questions? Everybody knows. Thank you, Mr. Page.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. Hey, autographs. Hey, listen.
I want mine. Can I get mine
They
back here
made mine.
first? I don't want him to leave yet.
You have a new fan, you and your wife do. My daughter just thinks you all are wonderful. They ran a party together. Yeah, it looks like it. He is great. Excuse me. I gotta make amends.
Hey, I was on the